Welcome back, students, virtual, Melt University, summer 2020. Can you believe it's week 5? Time is flying. And I don't know about you, but I sure am enjoying my interactions with you guys, my resume building with you guys. I'll look at any of your resumes. I'll look at your LinkedIn. I love it. I love what you're posting. So rewarding for me to post. Continue to post. Continue to encourage more students to go back and listen to the podcast, listen to the Lunch and Learns. So excited about your tremendous feedback. Got great news yesterday. The book, Building Brand New, will be out on September the 15th. We've got a lot of great plans for the book. We've got a lot of great plans to help you out and extend this. I also want to tell you, and I want you to tell your friends, because I'm talking to a lot of universities, obviously with a lot of uncertainty going on with going back to class and school this fall, a lot of internship requests, a lot of virtual internship requests. We are going to extend the Melt University program beyond this 8 weeks. We're going to continue with podcasts. We're going to continue with Lunch and Learns. We're going to start building a newsletter. It's going to be chock full of tips for you. We're going to obviously have the book out, and then we're going to evolve our podcast and our teaching sessions into sort of a masterclass environment. So we'll continue to keep you informed on that, inform your peers, inform your classmates, inform your professors, inform your mentors, inform your teachers. I really think that you guys are helping make this thing really, really special. We'll talk about podcasts in a minute. Tremendous podcasts, tremendous feedback on that. We've got some more special guests coming up. We'll talk about in just a few minutes as well, but continue to repost, continue to encourage. What you are doing is providing inspiration to not only myself, but to other students during this crazy time. COVID doesn't show any signs of abating. We're all unsure what's going to happen with our businesses, with our college campus return, with college football and all that. But what we can do is we can stay positive. We can deliver inspiration. We can help lift each other up. We can help learn and teach. We can equip you with all these amazing tools for the return post-COVID, because we will get through this. So congratulations to our first Melt U Scavenger Hunt winner, Katie Dunn. Katie, I love the image also. Katie is a great poster, great inspiration, great follow her, see how she's posting, see how she's taking Melt U as an advantage, as many of you are. So Katie, shout out, be on the lookout, $50 Amazon gift card coming to your email, and your submission said, I've gained so much information from every podcast. My favorite was CBS Tracy Wolfson, and one of mine too. She's amazing. You can see why she is where she is. Her experience, passion for sports as a woman are relatable to personality traits I possess. What also stuck out to me in the podcast was the persistence, keyword persistence, relentlessness, in which she pursued her career, especially when her boss said, I know you know sports, but not like the guys do. So take that motivation, take that inspiration. You're learning a lot of great things in this, and you're living through it right now in our podcast. Life is not linear. It's this. And there are going to be obstacles. You're going to get thrown off the saddle. You gotta overcome it. You got to keep pounding. You got to keep grinding. You will be back in school one day. As you've heard, the campus is the ultimate professional laboratory. Don't take no. We're learning so many things of new areas on the campuses: mental health, compliance, NIL. Get yourself familiar with NIL, collegiate esports, and those types of things as well. So I'm really, really enjoying it. The feedback, continue to keep the feedback coming, because it's so inspirational to me. Alumni Spotlight for the day. I was actually on the phone with her just a few days ago. Sydney Warren of Middlebury College really, was with us. I can't believe it. It was 2017. And then after her Melt University experience, she went on to be an intern at Viacom on Comedy Central in New York in 18. And then graduated successfully from Middlebury and went back to work at Viacom in the music division, MTV, VH1, CMT, and Logo. Worked on the integrated marketing team and worked with their top advertisers. And now she is moving into the entrepreneurial world, producing live music and concerts, and she's just awesome. So shout out to Sydney. Reach out to Sydney on LinkedIn. That's one reason that we're doing these alumni spotlights, is to allow you to connect in LinkedIn with some of our past alumni. So we'll continue spotlighting those alumni as we go. Her best advice: don't underestimate the power of handwritten notes. We've talked about that personalization of communication. We've talked about that effort. We've talked about that attitude. Be open-minded and always say yes. You're hearing this from a lot of great leaders. Accept things you may not want to accept. Take those jobs, do them to your best of ability. Take the next one, do it to your best of your ability. Bloom where you're planted. And as we said, life ain't linear, but that's okay. Trust me, we're all living in that right now. So shout out to Sydney Warren. We love you and we miss you, and we hope you come back. Here's a special lady I want to talk about. This is the Sydney Day. Sydney James. I knew Sydney's stepmother from another relationship building exercise from working together with her at Coca-Cola. She reached out to me several years ago and said, hey, I've got a special lady I want to introduce you to. And it was Sydney. And Sydney is like a daughter to me. She's a special part of my life. She spent, it was 2016, which is unbelievable. It was 4 years ago, and came into this program and really lit it up. And what do I mean by that? Tremendous attitude, accepted assignments. She just sort of rose above the crowd. So my point is that even we're in a virtual environment, you can be like Sydney. You can do extra special things. Volunteer to post, volunteer to host, volunteer to share, volunteer to spread the podcast around, the lunch and learn. We all want you to help us with the promotion of the book coming out, because we've got a lot of fun things in store for you. But Sydney Warren came here, Sydney James came here and really just lit it up, all the way to, like I talked about, Jack Winchester, was a paid summer intern coordinator, and now she's got a huge job. Believe it or not, she's in marketing for a very successful craft brew beer company in Charleston, and is just a rising star. Very special to me, as all of you are. Sydney says, you're hearing from people that are ruling the industry. What you're experiencing this summer, no classroom can teach, and we've told you that. Think of the access that you have. Think of the words of wisdom. Think of the words of advice. Think of your ability, and I know you're doing this because I'm hearing this from our folks on the podcast, that you're reaching out through LinkedIn. But Sydney says, hey, be a sponge, absorb this, take it in, because we're going to get through all this together. So, we had special guest on the podcast yesterday, Greg McGarity, longtime athletic director, University of Georgia, go Dogs. Listen to their careers in the athletic departments. The campus is the ultimate lab, mental health, compliance, NIL, esports, data analytics, ticketing, studying who their fan base is, a safe and successful return to the venues. And my main man, Seth Freeman, the ultimate brand marketer, CMO, Buffalo Wild Wings, Coca-Cola, IHG, also just a great values-based human being. I want you to listen to that. Tomorrow, we've got Mike Plant, the president of the Atlanta Braves. He's going to talk about careers in Major League Baseball, not necessarily with the Atlanta Braves, but all the way down to the professional sports leagues, professional teams, the venues, the minor leagues, and also he was a famous Olympian skater, so to talk about careers in Olympians as well. And then Katie Bain, one of my dearest friends, Guardian Angels, shout out to Sammy Bain's been with me for 4 summers as well. She was president of Coca-Cola, hugely successful as well. So you're going to love, those two tomorrow. And coming up, we got Mad Dog David Pollack, who's on ESPN Game Day. I talked to Reese Davis yesterday. He's going to be on the podcast. Mark Charty, famous Hollywood producer. Alan Green, Auburn athletic director, coming up in the hopper. Jim Dinkins, the president of Coca-Cola. Craig Silver from CBS, puts the SEC games on. Amazing. Chef Robert Irvine, who Restaurant Impossible. David McKillop, CEO of Chuck E. Cheese. Tim Zalowski runs revenue for the Falcons and the United. Shannon Watkins, my dear friend from Aflac. Steve Phelps, the president of NASCAR, and many, many, many others. So we got a full slate and a packed slate through the end of the summer. And keep sharing, keep posting, keep inspiring. And we got, like I said, coming out of this at the end of July, we're going to have some very, very special programs coming up for you. But today, as we said, the book is going to be launched on September the 15th. And we're going to teach 2 chapters today, chapter 4 and 5 of the book, about LinkedIn and the resume as a blind date. And you'll see what I mean in just a few minutes. With that said, you might want to take some notes today, because I'm going to be in fuego today, talking about 2 things I'm very, very passionate about, which is LinkedIn and helping your resume. So we'll lead off with a quote from Tom Ford. The most important things in life are the connections you make with others. And so I'm going to read you a headline from June the 12th in USA Today. You're crazy if you're not using LinkedIn. How to master the business social network. As I've told you time and time before, in the old days, I had to go to the Auburn Library and I had to go look up things like encyclopedias and yellow pages and resource guides and directories. You possess it right here in the palm of your hands. And so there are no excuses for not being able to reach your target for your job audition or your blind date. So let's talk about LinkedIn. It's simply the greatest professional networking tool ever invented. Why? Because everyone in business uses it. Here's something to think about. I have 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. It's the ultimate professional Rolodex for you. Now, I'm not close to everybody within those 20,000 close friends of mine, but at some point I probably have some connection to them. So think of even my LinkedIn as the ultimate professional networking tool, or Rolodex. Everybody's on it. No matter who you want to target, they're on there. And within their bio, it's chock full of information. Also, the companies you want to follow, they're constantly using it as well. And so, kudos to LinkedIn. It's amazing. So let's talk about how do you build your page that will win friends and influence people. And if you've never heard of a gentleman named Dale Carnegie, you ought to Google him as well. Read some of the chapters of his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. My father gave me that book a long time ago. I still read that book once a year. It's chock full of amazing advice and information. So when you have an opportunity, and I see that many of you have, but many of you have not, shame on you, go look at my LinkedIn page for a couple of reasons. Look at the format and style of how I write sort of my summary of who I am, my bio, my experience. Now, obviously, I've been in the game a little bit longer than you guys have. You're not going to have a 50-page LinkedIn, but look through my connections as well and use this sort of as a prototype. So one of your homework assignments is, my expectation is all of you should go check my LinkedIn page out, because you could spend hours trolling my connections and my Rolodex. Through that, search out leaders you admire and not only follow them, okay, because they got great advice coming out, benchmark your page against theirs. Now, obviously, I said you're not going to have as much experience, but if you love Tim Cook of Apple, if you love Jim Dinkins or James Quincy of Coca-Cola, if you want to follow Katie Bain, if you want to follow Malcolm Gladwell, it is the ultimate repository for this. And then begin sort of a log of people that you want to follow, and then people that they follow. And, maybe every week or so, you sort of go back there and benchmark. The summary and descriptor line should be the beginning of telling and selling your brand story, or the building of brand you. And we talk about that a lot. You're the brand. So go seek out people that you want to mimic or imitate at a very high professional level one day, and begin that benchmarking process, because what you're going to see through this process, you'll see qualities and characteristics that are consistent from page to page, or people to people, and how they position themselves and how they position their brand. So why not start now? Begin that process, because like I said, we're going to go back to school. You're going to have opportunities. COVID's going to pass, but I'm not kidding you. It is going to be a brutal entry-level job market. And I'm seeing it. I'm getting thousands of resumes. I'm getting tons of resumes from very, very qualified people who have been furloughed and who are out of work, who are willing to accept a lesser position for lesser money. So what that means, and go talk to your parents and others you're close to about it, is that it's going to be a brutal competition. So all of these tools that we're equipping you with are going to get you in that game, and you're going to break through. And we're going to talk a lot about stuff on the resume, because I'm seeing a lot of really good ones and a lot of really not good ones. And I want to save you, not only I want to save you time, I want to save you the trouble and the hassle of not even getting a response, and give you some tricks. And so before you build the LinkedIn page, we talked about explore pages of leaders you admire. Also, low-hanging fruit from connections are emotional connections. I went to Auburn. Obviously, I'm going to respond to everybody, but as you're reaching out, say Tim Cook of Apple, he went to Auburn. If you went to Auburn, leverage that emotional connection. Alabama, LSU, Clemson, Georgia Southern, Morehouse, wherever it is, those are the lowest hanging fruits, because you're making a cold call on LinkedIn, but you're leveraging that emotional connection. So, so as you begin to look through these, you'll have a feel, and you can start your own. And many of you have them now. But so if you have them now, kudos to you. But I also want to beef it up. I want to make it better for you, not only with the experience, but the descriptors of your experience. I always use the barista experience as an example. Like, you're not just serving coffee. You're on the front lines of consumer behavior, right? So think about that. Hey, I serve coffee at a coffee shop, or I'm on the front lines of consumer behavior, influencing thousands of purchase decisions every week in my job as I'm working my way through school as a barista. Think about those two for a minute. Think about how you're engaging your brand with a target who's that employer that you're trying to enhance. And so here's an example. I'm a former high school and college lacrosse player and leader in the student government at Auburn, seeking to connect with people who share my interest in sports marketing. So let's think about this. Lacrosse, leader, student government, Auburn, sports marketing. In one sentence, you've hit 5 markers. Think about that. Practice it. Think about, no matter who you are, of what you have done, you got a way to package it. It doesn't have to be about sports either, or government, or music, or whatever your interest is. You'll notice there's a spot for a photo. Huge miss from a lot of people is not an appropriate professional photograph. And it doesn't have to be a work of art, but I don't need to, see you in there wakeboarding on a lake, or, chugging a beer. Bring the heat in the LinkedIn photograph. Because, by the way, that's the first impression I'm going to have of you visually, right? So think about that. And focus less, as we've talked, on the quantity of the content and more on the quality. I had two things. I had a resume sent to me the other day from a good friend of mine, and he had stuff about high school on there, but it wasn't like, there wasn't anything that stood out about the high school. So I said, hey, lose a high school, really doesn't matter unless there's something exceptional. So let me get back to that. Then I had another resume from my guy Q, shout out to Q at UCF, He wanted me to review his resume. And by the way, it's a tremendous resume. I mean, you guys like I mean, he's a grinder like I am. But in the middle of that resume, which I had to dig through, he had this barely mention of an Eagle Scout. And I'm like, are you kidding me, Q? An Eagle Scout at your age is one of the greatest accomplishments that you can have. Move that up. Successful Eagle Scout seeking career in sports marketing. So what does that do? You'd be surprised at how many leaders, by the way, not me. I didn't do really, really well at Eagle Scouts because I couldn't pay attention very much and follow instructions. I know you're shocked to hear that. But Eagle Scout is a great accomplishment, huge achievement. And you'd be shocked at how many other fellow Eagle Scouts there are out there. So pull that stuff up. And we'll talk about resume in just a moment. And here's the other thing. Do not stress out too much about experience or lack of experience. You're 19, 20, 21 years old. You're not going to have that much, but chances are you're going to have something. Hey, I made a 4.0. I made the dean's list. I helped raise. So don't just say participated in juvenile diabetes dance-a-thon. Say helped cause marketing raise $100,000 for juvenile diabetes. Because think about the juxtaposition of those two. You either participated or you literally delivered some results for a great cause. So you're checking, I'm in cause, I'm in community, I put effort in, I helped raise a six figures for a worthy thing. It's all packaging, it's all branding, it's all adjectives. Take your time, write that. But as we've talked about, you got to make sure you got experience to tell and sell, right? So when you get back this fall, it's going to be, it's going to be a lot of challenges, a lot of obstacles, but you got to have things to tell and sell on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is the starting process of an audition, relationship building, connection with the Vince Thompsons and the Tim Cooks of the world. We're looking for self-starting. We're looking for self-initiative. We're looking for discipline. Show those things, because you got to move yourself to the head of that pack. Now, with that said, if you're filling out your LinkedIn page and you don't have a lot to say or tell, you got bigger problems. So you need to make a commitment right now. When you go back to school, you're going to begin finding activities and initiatives to begin building that brand story and that brand you within LinkedIn. The good news is, as you begin to acquire experiences like Melt U, and a couple things I want you to write down with your descriptor for Melt U and I get asked this for LinkedIn and for resume. Virtual summer intern, Melt University. Melt is one of the top sports marketing agencies in the country. They've represented the Coca-Cola company for 20 years. I had a perfect attendance with 50 podcasts from top industry leaders. I did 8 sessions learning from the book. And I am, so you see what I'm saying? You don't have to just say virtual Melt U. People know our brand in the industry. They know I'm committed to helping you. And then within each one of those podcasts, look those people up at LinkedIn and begin building that network. Some of them may not be on there, but you can find them in other places. But again, I'm trying to help you pad and beef up your resume as much as I can. Also, if you can afford it, get a premium LinkedIn package. It's relatively speaking, not a lot of money. It's about $100, but it gives you, it sort of opens up other gateways and doors within LinkedIn. But I know you're paying $9.99 a month for Spotify, so I know you can afford the LinkedIn because I know my son has Spotify and all you guys have Spotify. But it also gives you the ability to have personal in-mail access and all other sort of gateways within just the state piece of LinkedIn. So I would strongly encourage that. If you can do that, it really, really opens up a lot of gateways. So a couple other headers. Know your target. Vince Thompson, emotional connection, Auburn University. share the love, spread the love, link the love, because that's going to get my attention. Hey, War Eagle, Mr. Thompson, that also not only is that establishing an emotional connection because you might not go to Auburn, but that's a signal to me and that's a sign to me that you've done your homework on me. So those subtle, those subliminal overtures are going to catch my attention. And as I say, appeal to our ego. Leaders have egos. Most of us have healthy egos. You have to have a healthy ego to really kind of get to the top and power your way to the top. And so on your first pass to Vince Thompson, now I respond to everybody, guys, as you know, but not everybody does because they're busy or distracted or whatever. So don't go in for the hard sell on the first pass on your LinkedIn note. Don't even attach your resume. Take a soft touch. Appeal to the ego. Hey, War Eagle, Mr. Thompson, congrats on your awards. Seek advice and wisdom. We all want to be asked for our advice and wisdom. We all want to be asked for that. And we will give that back, but that's softening the target. It's warming up the target. It's a way of nudging that target, sort of breaking in that door a little bit. Because we're all just like you. I still seek wisdom. We've talked a lot about the importance of mentors. I love mentoring you guys. Ask for mentorship. Ask for words of wisdom. Ask what your go-to podcast is, what your go-to book is. But that's engagement. You're engaging. You're beginning that conversation. You're starting that professional relationship. But keep it brief and concise because obviously you're targeting busy people and everybody, in this COVID world is, we're upside down with our routines as well. And by the way, do not be discouraged if you don't hear back immediately for a couple of reasons. Some people are more active on LinkedIn than others. You'll learn that cadence. Secondly, they may be testing you. I call them Easter eggs. I go through the same thing on LinkedIn when I'm reaching out to a target I want to sell, pitch business to, and they don't respond. It makes me insane. And I tend to take it personal. We've told you not to take anything personal because this is a numbers game. But they may be testing you. So if you don't hear back immediately, wait another 7 to 10 days and make another soft lob. Hey, I know you're busy. You may not have seen this, War Eagle, but I really want, I want some advice and feedback. May I send you my resume? So don't take it personally. It may be a numbers thing. They may be busy. They may be on vacation. Who knows what everybody's going through in their life right now. And it also may be a test. So it's a subtle test to see how you would be as an employee if you don't get a response because they want to see your persistence. But I will tell you this, I love to reach out to everybody and reach back, as you know. But sometimes, folks just don't respond and they don't care. Let me give you a bigger picture thing of that. I'm flattered when each one of you guys, and I'm honored you reach out to me and I love it. If somebody doesn't feel that way, they may not share your value system. And we've talked a lot about shared values and working in a place that values you and you value them and you have shared value system. So it might not be a place or a person that you want to be. And by the way, that's okay too. Move on. Because we talked about this game. It's going to be like fishing. 100 casts, 8 bites, land 2 out of that 100. It's going to be even a more giant numbers game post-COVID. And we're going to talk about a lot of tricks on the blind date. But again, don't be discouraged. Get back on that saddle. So moving into chapter 5. So I think, as you say, let me go back to what I said. You're crazy if you're not using LinkedIn. I'm a huge proponent of it because you never know where these nuggets are going to land. So chapter 5, think of your resume as a blind date. Mickey Drexler says, the person is a resume, not what's on a piece of paper. Your resume, and we're going to talk a lot about this because there's a lot of pet peeves about it. Your resume going to a potential employer or internship coordinator is your original introduction, your audition, your knock on that door, or meeting somebody for the first time for a cup of coffee. And I use blind date sort of tongue in cheek, but I'm using it to sort of illustrate my point is that you want to make a good enough first impression to get to that second professional date. Because if you don't make that, and by the way, you only have one chance to make a good first impression. And it may not, you don't know if it'll lead anything at that moment, because I've had encounters with people, particularly now, as we say, the world's 24/7, it moves at the speed of sound. It's not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's 24 minutes and 7 seconds. I mean, it moves at the speed of sound. So you don't know when things are going to come around. And I'm hearing from people from all walks of life and all walks of industry I hadn't heard from in years. They want to know how I'm doing. They want to know how our business is doing. Obviously, we're in the live events and sport events. We've been devastated. We're fighting through. We're pivoting. You're a big part of that. And, you know, there's a lot of like conversation starters. But I'll also call it, I have a term for it, calling the great woo. WOO. Wooing. We're in the job search process. What I do to seek out new business, it's all a part of a wooing, a winning, convincing somebody, because there's going to be thousands of candidates out there fighting for these same jobs that you're going to be fighting for. You gotta woo somebody. The audition has got to be so important. You go look online of famous movie stars auditioning and look at their auditioning tapes. I mean, you got to bring the heat to the audition. So this resume, this is very, very important because it's packaging, it's presentation, it's building brand new. You are your resume. Your resume is the sum of your existence so far. I want you to think about that. So we're going to think about the descriptors. You want your resume to be a picture of you as an employee, not just a list of stuff you've done, because they're not going to pay attention to it. You may get their attention for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, particularly in an email. That's why the subject line is so important at best. So we're going to talk about the brand story we talked about in chapter 3 as well. How to write a resume. My approach to a resume is to focus on you as a person as opposed to a list of stuff. I want you to think through that just a minute. My approach to a resume is to focus on you as a person and you as your brand as opposed to a list of stuff you've done, okay? I call it an inverted pyramid. What do I mean by that? Well, first of all, I'm getting a ton of resumes and on the email, and we've talked about this, and we'll talk about it just for a second, but let me tell you the giant pet peeve. Don't send to a generic site. Info at Melt, careers at Melt. I know they're there, and it's okay if you send them, but if you would take the effort, because my email address is relatively easy to find and my LinkedIn is relatively easy to find, as are most people. But if you do have to send that, some of these subject lines I get are like, hi, I'm Joe Smith, attached is my resume, and I need to make this much money. I'm like, okay, great. My next move is to flush that resume, as opposed to saying, I don't like reaching out to generic sites, but if I have to, my name is Joe Smith. I'm a graduate of Auburn University. I know your CEO, Vince Thompson, went to Auburn University. I know that you guys have built a successful sports marketing firm. I know that you represent Coca-Cola. My experience at Auburn for 4 years in sports information will allow me to add value to your organization in these ways. So let's compare those two, right? A, you're selling yourself. You're brand new, the big woo, right? And even if it's coming in on generic site, somebody in that organization is going to see it and they're going to flag it and go, wow, this was well written. They did their homework. They did their research. They would make a great employer here. Let me share it with some hiring executives. That is a big one. So I say the inverted pyramid, and I get a little pushback on this because I get many resumes that lead with your education. And by the way, I know it's important. I know you've invested a ton of money and I know you've made great grades. I didn't make great grades, but I have an expectation you're going to have an education. I want to see all the other things that you've done around that for 4 years to pad that resume, to enhance that resume, to enhance that academic pursuit, because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for self-starters. We're looking for initiative. That's why I talk about volunteering and calls and Eagle Scouts and any of these green flags, I call them, that gets you to that top 5%. And so define your career objective. But by the way, this does not have to be like 50 sentences. It can be 1 or 2. I want to translate my passion at working at Auburn Sports Information into adding value to a sports marketing agency in these following areas. Now, by the way, you can adjust the career objective to whatever organization or industry that you're reaching out to, but also don't make it a what I'll call a selfish career objective, because you want to talk about yourself, but you also want to talk about yourself and your experience in context in terms of how you're going to add value to that organization. So that's kind of how you would crunch it up. And then little green flags again. Objectives to be head of social media, very specific. Looking for any opportunity. I want to get my foot in that door. You're going to hear that a lot on the podcast, and you've heard it a lot. Then you move into your relevant experience. This is where the big woo has happened. But don't just say, as I said, I was a barista. Talk about consumer behavior. Don't just say, I worked on the dance-a-thon. Talk about the results. Don't just say, I worked in the ticket office. Say, I worked in the Auburn ticket office analyzing fanalytics and data analytics to re-up or resubscribe Auburn season ticket holders had a 74% success rate. Think about that. I worked in the Auburn ticket office as opposed to I worked in the ticket office in the data analytics, helping upsell Auburn season ticket holders had a 74% success rate. Who are you going to listen to? Which one are you going to read? So analyze that. And by the way, get your parents or your friends or your mentors, get some objective and fresh eyes on it. I see thousands of resumes. So I'm just telling you right now what these secrets are. Relevant experience, not your education, self-starting initiative, and use colorful brand language. Paint the picture of brand new. We talked about your brand board. We talked about your vision. We talked about your destination. Give some richness in the description of your show. And then within, and by the way, 1 page. My boy Q sent me one with like 3 or 4 pages. And I'm like, man, this is great, but you're 20 and you got to get this thing down to 1 page because I got 10 seconds and you got a lot of really good stories to tell. But consolidate that. I'm picking on you today, Q, because you're doing so great. But then weave in that language of how you would add value to that organization. So you can have different versions of the same resume tweaked toward a particular industry or company or CEO. And you're hearing from a ton of these. And then again, if you've worked 3 jobs to get yourself through school, which is not uncommon, you need to merchandise that. You can say, hey, maintained a successful 3.0 average while working 3 jobs on the front lines of consumer behavior to support myself through school. If you don't think that's going to get you to the top, it is, because we're looking for that, how you're going to be as an employee. Are we going to make a giant investment of time, money, and energy and resources? Be willing to take that. And I'm beginning to see a ton of job hopping from a lot of young people now. And I'm going to tell you, those days are over. because A, the jobs aren't there, and B, as employers, we're going to look for individuals with sticking and staying power. So if you get in, be willing to take anything within reason and stick it out and grind this thing out. But packaging, positioning, building, brand new and those types of things. Like I said, I encountered a young lady at Arbor, and she said, well, I don't really have that good of grades. And I said, well, why not? And she goes, well, I work 14 hours a day and go to class and study and exercise. And I'm like, well, merchandise that, right? So that's what we're talking about: merchandising, packaging, branding, building brand. You obviously the professional, volunteer, and extracurricular. Like I said, I'm not downplaying the grades and all that stuff, but you guys are smart, sophisticated, most sophisticated generation of consumers ever. I have an expectation you're going to have a great education, you're going to have great grades, but I want to see the totality. I want to see the holisticness of your experience and how you present that. But again, it's only as important as you make it. Do not send generic emails. Do not send a generic email addresses. And if you have to do that, put descriptions on there. And then everybody goes, well, I can't figure out why I'm not getting any responses. Well, reverse your hat, reverse those roles. Think about it. If you were getting that, I mean, I literally get them all the time. And I'm like, you went to 4 years of college and this is the best you can do on the come out of trying to get a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year job. And again, they don't even make it past first base. And then people go, well, I don't know why I'm not getting a response. And so that's showing a lack of effort. So then after the progression, hit me up on LinkedIn, begin the warming up and softening up the target, then begin that conversation, that dialogue, that relationship building, then follow up with the resume, then find out my email, then find out my mailing address, send an email chock full of warming up advice and language on the subject matter line, Mr. Thompson, War Eagle, follow that up with a handwritten note and a resume. So I want you to think about that. A, you've shown giant effort. You've started multiple dialogues with Vince Thompson. And at some point in the spirit of a numbers game, you're going to get in the 5%. Then you're going to land the fish. Then the putt's going to fall. So, you can tell I'm passionate about this. And next week in Lunch and Learn, we're going to talk about how we're going to begin to apply these lessons to internships and job seeking, because like I said, it's going to be brutal out there. So let me see if we got questions. Anybody got questions? Q&A, chat. Bring them on, because today was a really, really, really good day, chock full of information. I know that you guys got some out there. Okay, Abby. Hey, Abby. Abby Woodard. As for resume design, do you prefer a creative approach, Canva, Photoshop, or a Word document? A Word document's fine, but the more you can make the presentation aesthetically clean or aesthetically beautiful. I'm seeing formats where they're sort of verticalized, where the left column has some, sort of descriptors of your education and some of your background, and then the body, and then the top has the objective, and then the guts or the middle part have the vertical descriptions of you've done. I sort of like that format as well, but do what makes you comfortable with that. And again, guys, if you want me to take a look at it, I got a note from Allie last night. I'm going to take a look at her resume. I've taken a look at Q's. I've taken a look at a lot of you guys. And so if you want to submit them to me, but I think, if you can make it concise, short, aesthetically pleasing, easy on the eye. So whatever you're comfortable with, and if you want me to take a look at it, but again, one page. Kelsey O'Laughlin, if I'm sending a message to someone on LinkedIn and I say War Eagle, Row Tide, et cetera, and I did not go to the school they attended, is it appropriate to say that to establish an emotional connection? Absolutely. First of all, you're establishing that emotional connection. Secondly, you're showing that you did that homework and that research. And third, you can maybe make sort of a joke about it. And I'll get sometimes, and people will say, "Hey, Roll Tide. Even though I didn't go to Auburn, I love Auburn except when they're playing Alabama," or something like that. So, anything to make that, that common bond or that emotional connection, because you're talking about your love of your college, you're talking about the love of SEC football, you're talking about the love of the great rivalry, and all that, those kind of things. Any hook or woo or emotional hook to kind of, bring that conversation together, not just a sort of generic come out. So, and it's also showing that you're making a lot of effort. Katie Dunn, hey Katie, shout out. I'm thrilled that I won the scavenger hunt. Where would you suggest putting the education section on resumes? Well, I've seen it done a couple of really good ways. If we talk about this sort of this, vertical, so you've got Katie Dunn at top and your career objective and a horizontal, and then I've seen them on the side, which tend to work out really well. It talks about, here's my education, my GPA, if it's good, you want to talk about it. Some extracurricular and volunteer awards that you've had, and then within the guts of it, you talk about your relative on-campus experience, your experience with virtual Melt U, you won the scavenger hunt, and those types of things. And so I'm just not really. And by the way, not everybody agrees with me on this, but I'm not an advocate of just leading with the education. Like I said, I like this inverted pyramid approach, and at the bottom of the inversion is where you would be able to talk about your education. It's kind of like the cherry, the cherry on the top of all the holistic experiences that you've had at Auburn. And I want to give a special shout out to Katie. If you guys aren't following her, if you're not seeing the types of things she's posting in LinkedIn, the testimonials and all this stuff, sharing the words, sharing the bond, sharing the attitude, sharing the inspiration, use her as a great example, because I know all of you guys are participating, getting a lot out of this, but she's really establishing a great benchmark and a great example of how we can inspire others to be a part of our program. And it's still not too late. Those podcasts are out there on Apple and Spotify, our YouTube, our LinkedIn, our website, and those types of things. And so if you guys can help and inspire one student like I'm doing, then we've all helped the greater good. So shout out to Katie. Sarah Cadenhead, since I have interest in sports media relations, I'm interning in Auburn athletics, but I'm studying PR. Should I have two separate resumes for each field? You can, or you may want to take a blended approach, because the definition of PR now is a lot wider than it was back when I was working at the Auburn Athletic Department as a student assistant. You can have two. You can have two, and it also depends if. But there's a lot of, like I said, maybe a hybrid or a blended approach, because you're learning journalism, you're learning writing, you're learning media relations, you're learning social media relations, you're working on the trademark and branding of the university. Those are other buzzwords. Hey, I worked on the Auburn trademark and the Auburn brand and the Auburn football trademark and brand as well. Worked on Coach Malzahn's trademark and brand and those types of things. And so I think it wouldn't hurt to have two, basically, depending on what job you're reaching out for. But if you want me to take a look at it, but you might want to try sort of a blended or a hybrid, because I'm sure you've got great examples and experiences in both. Jake Haston, shout out to Jake. If we are struggling to find the address for a personal thank you note for one of the Melt U speakers, how do you suggest we move forward? That's a good question. I'll tell you that some of the business pages and some of the say Bloomberg or Yahoo, or some of the if it's a public company, some of the stock pages, you can probably find that corporate address So for instance, it was Jim Dinkins. You can probably go to Coca-Cola's investor page. If it's the tour, you can, Google in PGA Tour headquarters address, that types of thing as well. So I would use, the Bloomberg, Yahoo Finance, or I oftentimes, if I'm researching address, I'll just type in like Coca-Cola corporate headquarters address. And typically at some point that's going to get to Jim Dinkins or Ty Votaw at the tour. And that's not really uncommon. So no more questions. Guys, amazing session, amazing feedback. Thank you so much today for your participation. This was one of my favorite lunch and learns. I think it was just chock full of information and advice. I want you to listen to this. I want you to listen to it again. We're going to repost it again. These two things, LinkedIn and resume, this is going to be in your toolkit. This is going to be in your arsenal to break that door down in the job search and the intern search in a post-COVID world. And I'm proud of you guys for your participation, hanging in there. Week 5, summer 2020, virtual Melt University. We roll on, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.